I'm Lori with Yarn Creations by Lana. In this video, we're going to make another pumpkin. There are so many cute patterns going around the internet for all different kind of pumpkins, but this is especially interesting because you don't use any knitting needles and you don't use a crochet hook. You use just your hands. It's called hand knitting. You do need a few supplies. You need a thick yarn. Mine is a number 7, so you want to go with a 7 or above. If you get your yarn too thin, you're going to be able to see all of the stuffing through the stitches. You will also need a stem. I have leftover pumpkin stems from last year. At the end of the season, I snap them all off, throw them in a bag, and save them for the following year. But you can use anything. You can use a stick from your yard. You can use cinnamon sticks. You can even crochet them, but I've not tried that yet. You will also need a pair of scissors, and you will need something that you maybe want to decorate your stem with. You can use, mine is just jute, twine. You can use lace, you can use ribbon, you can put flowers on it, however you want to decorate it. I also have, you need a little bit of polyfill, and you will need a needle and some kind of thread. This is going to give your pumpkin shape so that it won't look like a circle. Now I have a very long needle, but you can use a regular needle. As long as it has a large eye so that you can thread it with whatever you're going to use. As far as what you use, I would not try to use this for sectioning it off. It's just rather difficult this yarn does not want to pull through easy. You could use regular sewing thread, you could use quilter's thread, or I'm going to use just a number 4 worsted weight yarn. It matches the color fine because you don't even see it through all of the thickness of this yarn. So let's get started. The very first thing we need to do is make a slip knot. Now I have unwound a whole bunch of yarn because this yarn goes really quick when you're working. So let's make a slip knot. You can do that any way that you would like, but you want to leave a fairly long tail. This is what you're going to use to close off the bottom of the pumpkin. So let's leave maybe a foot or a little bit more. That's actually probably almost a foot and a half. So now let's make a slip knot any way that you would like. And that is your first stitch. Good. Okay, now all you need to do is take your working yarn, not this short end, but your working yarn that is attached to your skein, and you're going to just loop it right through that first loop that you made. Pull up your second loop. And then you're going to repeat that. 3. Yeah, I'm just going right up through the center of the loop and pulling it up. 4. I wouldn't make it too terribly loose. 5. But you don't want to do it really tight either because then you won't be able to get your fingers through it. 5. 6. 7. 8. Let's go to 10. 9. 10. Okay, now you can see all of the, if you look closer, you can see all of the stitches. This part right here is the top. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And this is the 10th one, but you're really not going to use that. So what I normally do is I add 1. Doesn't really matter. You can do it however you want. These are so forgiving that it doesn't matter if you do an odd number of stitches. The more stitches you do, the bigger around your pumpkin is going to be, and the more rows you put on it, the taller your pumpkin is going to be. Now I'm going to make this one pretty small because I have quite a few large ones. So if you want it a little bit larger, go to 15, go to 20, but just remember, it takes more yarn and they're going to be a good size pumpkin. So I have an actual 10 working stitches on here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Remember, we don't count that one. Now you're going to take the short end of your yarn, and you're going to stick it through the loop and pull it to the end. Now you don't need to tie it, but what I often do is I tighten that loop right there, and that'll help hold your yarn in. There you go. Okay, now we are ready to begin our rows. After you have finished your first row of loops, it should look just like this. Now all you're going to do, and you should have the same amount of loops going around as you did in your starting chain. If you don't, that means you either put 2 of the loops into one or you accidentally skipped one. So going forward, all you need to do is continue that working yarn for the second row. You're going to loop it through this first one and all the way around. You've already got 3 there in row 2. Six, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's the end of our second row. And it should look pretty much like that. Now all you have to do is continue on in that same pattern, just adding more into the next loop and keep going around and around for as many rows as you would like. I think I'm going to try about 8 rows and see where we're at. So finish up however many rows you would like and stop there and we'll finish it up. I have finished 8 rows, which should be just about the perfect size for this little pumpkin. And once you start going around and around, it starts holding itself up like a cup, which is exactly what you want. And you can flip it over this way and you can count your rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yep, there we go. And also, as you're going around, once in a while, it doesn't hurt to flip it over and look at the back side, because as you're pulling this yarn through right here, what you don't want to do is leave a big loop like this, because then that's on the inside of your pumpkin. And although it won't show, it could loosen your stitches after you start adding the polyfill. So now we're going to close the bottom of the pumpkin first so we can add our polyfill. You also do this by hand. You're going to take that short yarn that you started with and right about every other stitch. Don't do every stitch because it's really hard to pull it tight. Do every other stitch and start weaving it through. You don't have to be exact. You'll know if there's any big spaces, you can go back and redo it, and you can make it closer. You know, if you accidentally skip 3 stitches instead of maybe every other one, you're going to end up with a hole. So let's do every other one. And as you start going around, I would start tightening it. Oh, there we go. Mine is already, oh, it looks like I have one that I missed one. So let's go back. I'm going to loosen a little bit. Stick it right through here. Okay, now I've tightened mine. And what you're going to do is take this yarn, stick it through the center of that hole you just created. Oh, sometimes I can't find exactly where that is. Well, let's try that again. I have it so tight. Oh, there it is. Okay, I have it so tight. We're gonna stick your finger in there, and you can really put this through anywhere you want to stick it through. I'm gonna stick it over here. It's a little bit easier. Come up through the center, because this isn't going to show at all. So if you don't get that center hole exact and you want to weave it close to that hole, you're going to be just fine. I most of the time tie a knot just because I don't want to take any chances and have anything come loose. You just leave that extra thread right down in there. You're not going to see it. And now we're going to fill it with polyfill. What I normally do is just fill the bottom part at first, because I'm going to start closing off the top. That way it's a little bit easier. The polyfill doesn't fall out. So what you want to do is you want to leave a nice long tail, probably, a couple feet or so. I always leave way too much, but that's all right. You can cut it off if you don't use it. Now here's where we ended up, right here with our last stitch. You're not going to go into that one, but you're going to go in the next one, and you're going to start weaving this back and forth through all of those loops. Oop, don't pull your loop out over here. Don't pull it really tight when you start. And just go around and catch every one of those top loops. I went around and caught all of those top loops. So now we can take it and start pulling it in a little bit. Let's not get too far. We're going to add the rest of the polyfill. These small pumpkins don't take a lot, and you can stuff them as much or as little as you would like. Sometimes if you put too much in, you can start seeing it in between the stitches. That looks pretty good. This loop is a little bit loose, but I think we should be all right once we tighten it up. I think I might add just a little bit more polyfill to mine. There we go. And you can shape it as you go along. You don't have to worry about getting it filled exactly the same. See how mine was kind of separated right there? That's only because when I'm pulling it tight, I haven't gone all the way around yet. So those will all be much closer together. Oh, this is not easy as it looks sometimes. The thicker yarn you have, the cuter the pumpkin, but the more it takes to get it to not show any big holes. And the harder it is to pull it tight. Now, since I'm using a real pumpkin stem, I can't close this hole very small. If you're using cinnamon sticks or even maybe a branch from outside, a little stick from outside, you might be able to pull it tighter. But what I try to do is make sure that this is going to fit and pull it tight, but you have to be able to get it in and out. Once you're done, you can always glue it if you want, but you have to be able to get it back in there. And that looks pretty good. So now I'm going to take mine out, and I don't want to do it any tighter than that. Then I'm going to cut a little tail, tie a knot. You do not have to tie a knot, but I'm always afraid something's going to come undone, and stick it right down in the middle. Nobody's going to see that. Put your stem back in. There you go. Actually, for this next step, we're going to take the stem back out. But I wanted to give you an idea of what it's going to look like. So let's take our stem out. Now you could leave it like this if you don't want to section it off, but I think it looks a little too round. I want to give it the shape a real pumpkin has. So let's take this out. For this step, you're going to need your needle and whatever thread you're going to use. Now remember, I'm using a number 4 worsted weight yarn in a color that's close enough because you're not going to see it. And I've made it really long because we're going to section this off on 4 sides to make it look more like a pumpkin rather than just a round ball. So now we're going to go up through the bottom, sort of in the middle, right where you probably tied it up. And you're going to grab for your needle on the other end, which is your top opening. Now that's where it's going to take a little bit of patience if you're using a regular size needle, because it's not as easy to feel if it's really small. So you're going to pull it. You're going to come as close to that center as you can and tie a knot. And when you tie it, you're going to give it a little pull, and that'll pull in the first side of your pumpkin. Okay, go. You can shape these however you would like. And then tie another knot. And I'm going to give it one more. Tie this just a wee bit shorter. and put this down into the hole. Nobody's going to see it. Okay, now you're going to do, here's our first one right here. We're going to do the same thing on this side. We're going to go up through the center, flip it around and grab it right there where your stem is eventually going to go. Pull it tight. And do it just about opposite where your first one was. Sometimes it's a little bit hard to see, but eventually you should be able to find it. We're just about opposite of that. Pull it over, insert it into the bottom, and back up through the top again. You don't have to knot it this time, but you are going to pull it tight. It just pulls that in just a little bit. Now you've done both sides this way. We're going to go crosswise. So you're going to put your yarn down this way, go back up through the center, if you use a heavy twine or something for this part of it, it is difficult to get it to come up through that center hole. Okay, here's the second one, or the third one. Yep, there we go. Now we're going to do the last one this way. And you're going to do, actually, for this last one, nope, you are going to do the same thing. You're going to come up through the center hole. And here at the top, oh, I've lost my thread. So let's try that again. Okay, we're going to thread it. Up through the center hole right here back on top. I think that was in the right spot. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep. Okay. Give that a nice little pull. And what I would do is tie a little knot right here. You don't have to be exact. Okay. Cut that off. Shove it down in the inside there where your stem is going to go. Now you can put your stem back in. Hopefully I haven't made that opening too tight. Oh, there we go. Okay, there we go. Now it has a little bit better shape. You can't even see them there. You can't tell that it makes indentations, but it just leaves it a little bit better than a plain circle. Then for this pumpkin, all I'm going to do is cut a piece of this twine. Like I said, I've used lace, I've used ribbon, I've done all kinds of different decorations on them. And what I generally do is just wrap it around a couple times. Tie a bow or leave it in a knot. The decorating part is strictly up to you. There we go. Cut this end off. And there you have it. Your first hand knit pumpkin. Thank you for joining me today. Come on over to my Instagram page by the same name, Yarn Creations by Lana, and send me some pictures of the pumpkins you've made. Make sure to tag me so that I see them. Also, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and always feel free to share these videos. I appreciate it so much. Thanks for joining me. Until next time, happy crocheting.